U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen will today, in a speech she's slated to deliver today in Dakar, she's declaring that Africa can help shape the future of the global economy. Yellen will set out why the Biden administration intends to elevate its focus on the continent over the next 2 years. In excerpts of the speech released by the Treasury, she said the United States is committed to building on Africa's significant progress in economic development over the past few decades, adding that Africa's success will mean success for all of us, and the United States is here as a partner to help Africa realize its massive economic potential. Arise business analyst Bode Ososami joins us now for more on this on Newsday. Thanks for joining us, Bode. We just got the latest UK sales and Germany PPI data. Could you take us through the numbers?
Yes, thank you, Howard, for having me on the show. Indeed, retail sales in the United Kingdom decreased to 1% in December 2022 over the previous month, worse than 0.5% expected. According to the Office of Statistics, the cost of living crisis, that's the squeeze, is behind the drop in consumer appetite to buy. Of course, we know that in December we had labor strikes, which paralyzed transport, mail, and it would have made shopping more difficult. And of course, with the declining confidence, all that took its toll on retail sales as markets continue to speculate if the UK slipped into recession in the last quarter of last year. Producer prices in Germany also increased 21.6% in December of 2022 over the same month on an annualized basis, lower than 28.2 PPI in November, although higher than forecasts of 20.8%. In Germany, again, the main contribution for the drop in producer prices was the decline in energy prices. That said, even with the 1% fall related to November, energy prices are still nearly 42% higher as a whole compared to December 2021. Putting it in context, I was just listening to Larry Summers at the closing of the Davos session, which, like you said, is now ended. And one thing that Larry Summers said, he's the former US Fed chief, he said he's concerned that the factors bringing inflation down could be transitory, especially as the adverse impact of the ongoing war in Ukraine on food and supply chain issues cannot be said to be over. So that means that this war against inflation is still very much work in progress.
Well, but what do you make of the latest pivot of the U.S. towards Africa?
Well, the U.S. said they want to do better than China in supporting Africa's development. But first, we have to understand the challenges that Africa has had with China. Only yesterday, also at the World Economic Forum, Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi, he criticized the 6.2 billion minerals for infrastructure contract with China, saying the world's largest producer of a key battery metal hasn't benefited from the deal. Now, that's coming from the president of Congo. Africa is flush with natural resources, including copper and cobalt, that are major components in electric vehicles, chips, and so on. But they are at the bottom of the value chain, and they seem to be stuck there. And this paradigm of Africa as the supplier of cheap raw materials for the rest of the world is an 18th century construct, which has changed little, even today. Yellen says she's in Africa to help Africa realize its massive economic potential. She's spending 10 days in Africa. She arrived in South Africa on January 24th. She's visiting, apart from Senegal, she's also going to be in Zambia. South Africa is scheduling to conduct naval exercises off its eastern coast with Russian and Chinese warships February 17 to February 26. So clearly, you can see that South Africa is very much aligned with Russia and China, and that's going to be an issue. And Yellen is also urging African governments to embrace the transition from fossil fuels to clean energy, adding that the continent is well placed to take advantage of energy from renewable sources like the wind and so on. But But while he's saying so, Senegal is also pushing a major offshore project straddling its border with Mauritania. And that is projected to bring Senegal $1.4 billion of oil and gas revenue from 2023 to 2025. So there are all kinds of tensions in the narrative. Only last week, a Qatari energy minister said developing economies are being misguided to see gas as a transition fuel when it should be a destination fuel, given the economics and availability of gas in regions suffering a massive energy deficit. But let me just wrap it up. Even though Yellen argues that the price cap that has just been put on Russian oil has helped Africa save oil importing African countries $6 billion annually, my take is that driving a wedge between Africa and Russia or China is a wrong strategy to make Africa succeed. And Africa needs, like I often say, modern infrastructure, especially digital infrastructure, to participate in the digital revolution. Africa needs to go up the value chain, export chips and electric batteries instead of nickel and copper. Africa's vast population needs better and upgraded and relevant skills and exposure. And Africa, more importantly, needs improved institutions in almost all sectors. The other thing that was mentioned at the Davos is that Africa is disadvantaged as far as capital is concerned. Already there's a lot of negative stereotypes that hurts Africa's weak risk ratings. When you add to the fact that developed economies are also borrowing heavily, that crowds Africa out completely from access to finance. So these are big issues that I think Yellen really needs to help Africa with.
Very well said. Well, thank you so much for that analysis, Bode Ososami. Thanks for joining us.